I am a Floridian, but not by birth. Moved to Florida with my parents in the first year of my life. I learned to walk in Florida. My mom and dad were part of the greatest generation. Father was separated from the Army in 1945. Tried to open his own business, much like the veterans are today. Was not successful. Loaded up the family, my mother, myself, and came to Florida. I watched my parents work as blue-collar workers. My mother packed oranges and my father worked in a body shop. Salt of the earth folks that taught me an appreciation for hard work and to try to make something of myself. I graduated from high school down in Lake County in Umatilla. Shortly after high school, I joined the Florida National Guard, worked at several jobs, and was able to become a full-time National Guardsman and became a full-time soldier, which I dearly loved. I did that until 1985 in Lake County, and a position opened at the Florida National Guard headquarters for an operations sergeant for the headquarters. I applied for that position, and the best thing that ever happened in my life, other than my sweet marriage, was to obtain that job. I moved to St. Augustine with my family in May of '85. Continued my National Guard career until 1995, retired as a sergeant major. Enjoyed working for the general staff from '95 to 2008 as the Director of Executive Services. I was responsible for all protocol for the Florida National Guard and the Florida Department of Military Affairs. Was heavily involved in deployment ceremonies for 47 units that deployed. That was one of the toughest jobs I've ever had, is to watch our families separate while a loved one went for a tour of duty for a year in a combat theater. And retired in 2008. Had a wonderful year off, and then I was approached by Commissioner Minor to replace him on the county commission for a year. And I remember looking at the young man and saying, "Are you crazy?" And Mark said, "No, I have a great respect for you and I'd love to see you do that." And I waited about 2 months before I gave him an answer, because I thoroughly researched it and talked to my family and got their permission. And did become a commissioner and served the entire year of 2010. And I met that persuasive young man again, and he told me he was not going to run for re-election, and here I am stepping up again. And that's truly an honor for me, because I was glad to see Mark come home, but I was a little saddened to leave. I truly enjoyed serving the public for that year. I became immersed in it. I studied harder than anybody else there and researched, I think, more than the other guys and gals did. And I left with a little bit of a void, and I would like to go back and serve the citizens of the county again. I truly believe that.
Cool. Good deal.
Well, if you're re-elected, or elected, I guess, for the position you once held,
Right.
what would you like to accomplish?
What I would like to accomplish is to ensure that our citizens here in this county have employment. I'm so concerned about the unemployment situation. St. Johns County is not unique in that. Actually, we're probably a little better off than the surrounding counties. But I want to do that by attracting business to the county that will increase our tax base and also put people to work. I worked very hard with the Industrial Development Authority during my tenure, and there are some truly dedicated businessmen who sacrifice their time to bring business to the county. I want that assignment again, and I believe that I can impact both employment and business if I can resolve that.
I don't know if you were on the commission at the time when they voted to increase the millage rate. Were you on?
I was not.
Had you been on when that came up, would you vote for or against it?
The truth is, yes, I would have. We were in a position, I believe the county was in a position where we did have to upgrade the communication system, and also finance the cost of the fire station that we had just built in Palencia. And given that, that small tax increase would have been necessary.
Okay. The city manager, county manager rather, Mike Wanchek, framed the debate as it's a vision of what you want the county to be. What do you want the county to become?
You know, we have the, and I truly believe I can use the word luxury of living in one of the best counties in the state of Florida. We're blessed with the best healthcare system, the healthiest residents. We're blessed with the best education system in the state, which has been proven for several years now. I want to continue that quality of life. That's the framework that we should work for. Public safety is a #1 concern, but quality of life is what we need to ensure.
The impact fees issue just doesn't go away. What do you stand on that?
I would like to see a reduction in the impact fees. We've got to find some middle ground where our budget will allow it. We've become dependent upon it. Polk County recently did away with their impact fees, and the impact on that county, which is sort of in the same size and stature as St. Johns County, they lost $6 million in revenue. And a $6 million hit in our budget here in St. Johns County would be really tough. So we must wean ourselves away. I can't see that we can do it right away, but a reduction would help.
You mentioned the communication system. A lot of arguments for it and a lot of arguments against it. Would you give your explanation of why you would have voted for it as you went on?
I had the privilege of being in communication with the entire situation in 2010, and I actually read the letters that we received from Washington, D.C. from the FCC that told us what our deadline was and that we had been given too many passes already and the deadline was upon us. I also met with our fire rescue, and this would be before the incident on State Road 16 that proved detrimental to our communication system. And when I met with them, they explained to me that they had to station someone down the street from an incident and use hand and arm signals to talk between law enforcement and the fire department. We can't have that. We can't have the possibility of a loss of life because we can't talk. I have been in situations where communication was sorely needed, such as Andrew. Everything in Miami blew down during that hurricane, and if it had not been for the military there to transfer messages, it would have been a disaster. We had to have it, and we had been warned. Former commissioners knew about it. This county knew about it a long time and drove their feet, and we were up against the wall. We had to do it.
One of the candidates not running for your seat and running one of the other races told us this morning that there's a lot of the places in the budget that could be cut. He talked about privatizing services such as roads, road repair, bridge repair, and charging for services that are now free, such as CDs in libraries. What are your views on those? Either privatizing. One argument was privatizing and said it would be cheaper, and the other argument he made was that we shouldn't be competing with private business, which is selling or renting CDs, DVDs, whatever they're called. You guys?
DVDs.
DVDs.
You're good.
I'm just a techie dweeb.
He's up on this stuff.
You want to know anything about anything technical, ask her, because I don't have a clue.
I could do that. There are some opportunities for privatization and outsourcing within the county. There's no doubt. I would relate to you that we have an enterprise. There are a couple enterprises in the county that are supposed to be self-supporting. Two that come to mind are utilities and our golf course. Our golf course struggled for the last 3 or 4 years. based on the economy, based on weather, but not doing well. We had to dip into the general fund to help the golf course out, and you're not to do that. That's not a public supported golf course, it's to stand alone. I listened to the employees out there when I was a commissioner, and yes, I was playing golf. I listened to the employees out there, and I heard several proposals, caused meetings to happen with the county staff, and the end result was we closed 9 of the 27 holes, and we outsourced the maintenance. Several of our county employees were grateful they retired. They were ready to retire and looked at the package and said good. And some decided to go to work for the company that took over the maintenance. So there are good stories that come from outsourcing, and I appreciate them. But what it's done is turn that into a profit-making entity now, and that's the way that it should be. So would I like to see outsourcing of all of our county services? Oh no. No, I believe that the government should provide our taxpayers with what we feel they deserve. I don't have that sense of entitlement that some people have, but our libraries they're one of our greatest assets, and I don't want to charge anybody anything to come in our library. If they can check out a CD, they can check out a book, and there's no charge for that. I couldn't do that.
Folks?
Jobs. Talk about jobs. We talked a little bit about impact fees and how we've grown dependent on them, and that's part of the jobs. That's revenue. How do you? What are your ideas on how do we bring more jobs or new business? I guess employment opportunities. Maybe that's a
sure. In 2010, I was an advocate for hiring a full-time person for economic development.
And you did.
And yes, we did. I met several times and raised my voice a couple times, and by golly, we were able to fund that position. And this young lady has brought 8 thriving businesses to the county in her year and a half here. And I know that one business had, I can't remember the name of the business, but there was more than 100 employees. That's how we grow the county's tax base. That's how we take the 8.5% off of the unemployment rolls. We just have to attract it.
Just go
and to sit down with these gentlemen that sit on the Industrial Development Authority and to hear their ideas. I want to tell you something. When I became their liaison and I attended their Thursday afternoon meetings, I listened to what they had to say, and some of the things I didn't agree with because I had a little bit of insight to the county operation that they didn't have. And I said, gentlemen, we need to open a line of communication. So the next meeting, I had all the key players from Growth Management Office and the Permitting Office sitting at the same table. Oh my goodness, what a unique idea. And they're still doing that.
Well, we hear the stories. I mean, one or several of the things that we hear being criticized is the permitting process, the cumbersomeness of it, the number of it, the length of it, along with the same thing that goes with impact fees.
Sure,
all the
sure.
things that we talk or that people criticize as detrimental to encouraging business to St. Johns County. And you had spoken of impact fees, but it really goes...
It goes beyond that, yeah. Certainly. And I would tell you, as a commissioner, I would receive copies of letters or letters directly to my desk from contractors applauding our permitting system. We have a terrific permitting system, and I think that some of these opinions have been grossly exaggerated. And I would ask anybody to go to that permitting office, go to that planning office, and sit down with those folks. We're granting some permits on the internet now. You can do it online. I can't defend the entire operation,
sure.
But I'm telling you, there's some good folks doing some good work there.
I want to go back to 2006. At that time, it was the boom years. There were 70,000 houses approved for construction. and there was a sea change, if you will, in the county commission. Two of the commissioners, one never voted against a housing development, one voted against two, but at the very end when, you know, she could see the tea leaves. And the people who voted in, basically they were saying, hey, enough, let's get a plan that has more housing, less housing, more jobs. Now, it's changed. The economy has stopped the housing construction, and now we're starting to see candidates come and say, hey, you need to reboot the housing industry. There's got to be a balance in there somewhere. What do you see as a balance between, if you will, the property rights? People who own the property have a right to develop it in ways that go with the code, and then the other is that people have to live on the roads and go to the schools and live with, if you will, what some might perceive as congestion.
Sure.
There has to be a balance there, and it appears to me that we go from one to the other, but we don't end up in the middle. I want to ask you what you think. Is there a middle ground in those?
I think we've almost found that middle ground over the last 3 or 4 years. The board that we have right now are pretty cognizant of both the economy and the needs of the developers. There is a group of developers who are coming to the county commission now and asking to downsize some of those projects that were passed. They have a set number of years to begin construction. Mm-hmm. They're asking for extensions on those, but they're also asking to downsize them. And I think the only ones that I voted for when I was on the commission were those projects to be downsized. Finding that middle ground is really tough because it's a balance of our economy. We're taking food off the tables, and we're making one group happy when another group is not, and it's just so very hard. It really is.
Miss Margot? She always has many questions.
Right. Commissioner.
Right.
What? Right. Okay. The board we have now, you served with that board, so
yes.
How would you characterize that board in their relationship with Wanchek? Do they work for the county administrator, or does he work for them?
In 2010, when I realized what position I had, this is pretty unique. You have to think about the military and my background.
Yeah.
I've always had a chain of command. I always worked for somebody. I was always responsible for those who worked for me. And then I found myself in the most unique position I'd ever been in. The only bosses that I had were the people of St. Johns County. Nobody in that building was my supervisor. Nobody there tasked me. And that, I believe that is the approach that the majority of our commissioners have. I remember walking out of Mike Wanchek's office once, and I said, "Yes, sir, I got it," just like that. And he said, "Well, never use that word, Commissioner. I work for you." And I said, "You know what, you do." And that's the relationship that I had, and I'm satisfied that the other people. I've been asked that question before. I certainly have, but we're pretty strong. I'd like to tell you how to work that. Being a commissioner is an overwhelming job. I remember going to the office the first time for my first meeting, and they told me where to go to get my agenda book. And I asked the lady introduced myself, and I said, "I need the agenda book for Tuesday's meeting." And this lady came out with a 3-ring binder about this thick. And I said, I don't need 2010, I need Tuesday. She said, "Commissioner, that is Tuesday." So, friends, it's just overwhelming. Now, all the supporting documents for every item on the agenda are there. And you must absorb those if you're going to make a logical, mature decision. So what I began doing was, I bought some composition books, and I would sit at home at night and review those agenda items, and I would write my questions, and I'd write my challenges. And then on Thursday afternoon, I met with Wanchek and Cameron and Locklear, the 3 guys, and usually somebody from growth management. And much to their dismay or time consuming, we went through every piece of that until I was satisfied that I knew I could sit down and discuss the items. Those folks work for the commissioners, and you have to know how to do that.
The other question, another thing that came up with a candidate in another race, talking about maybe some of the services that the county offers, like DVDs in the library, maybe we should, pay for services. And so I kind of was going down a list and saying, well, what about healthcare? We have a county health department that's county state shared, and then you have county health services.
Yes.
Should those be services that we continue to pay for, as taxpayers, or are those things you would farm out, I guess?
We may be headed toward a crisis because the state was picking up the lion's share of that cost, and they've announced they've cut the budget, but what they did was send us the bill. And
Is this
it's
the one
costing us
that,
more money.
that $1 million?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
So,
So, if our citizens are able to bear a little bit of the brunt of their medical care, then they should. I think there should be an analysis of their ability to pay, and if they can't pay, there should be a small copay.
or maybe like a sliding scale type.
Exactly, based on their ability.
Okay. What about recreation?
No, I think we owe it to our families and to operate our recreational facilities and our fields for our people. There are literally hundreds of parents and hundreds of citizens who volunteer to help run that recreation program. If we had to pay for that out of our tax money, we couldn't begin to pay them. And not only in recreation, but we have thousands of volunteers that volunteer all over the county. And what an asset.
What about roads and bridges?
Well,
Think that should be privatized, or?
I think that we need to take a hard look at our road and bridge system and see if it's up to date, if we're using the modern technology that we should use. I have visited road and bridge operation. I've seen it. I know about it. I know they're key to the success of our transportation here in the county. But I want to know that we're up to date. I don't know that would cause outsourcing or not, but
One of the bigger challenges I know that the county sees it's facing, if the economy just doesn't improve, and that is the tax base. Real estate, property values declining, foreclosures more coming,
sure.
Which says the tax base is going to be reduced, and using up the reserves. So my question is, where do you go if you're going to have to reduce it another, pick a number, 100 mil, 50 mil, 150 mil, 200 mil?
Sure.
Where does the county go to find, where do you think they need to go to find that type of savings that they believe they're going to be facing?
Well, it'll take a much harder look at the budget than what we've been forced to do in the past. And it'll take a great deal of moral courage on the part of whoever is sitting on the county commission, because there are special interest groups for everything that we've mentioned here today, and I've seen them in their t-shirts in the auditorium, and I respect them. But at some point, commissioners will have to be trusted to make the right call and do an across-the-board reduction, whatever it takes.
There's an issue that's come up. It's being led nationally by people like the Koch brothers, but a lot of the conservative groups. And you're starting to hear it talked about more and more in the state and local level, and that's the cost of pensions and the cost of health care. And as you know, there's a growing disparity. People in the public sector get pensions. Increasingly, people in the private sector don't. In fact, here, the only place I can think of in the private sector that gives them is Mayo. So there may be others, but by and large, the people who get pensions now are public sector employees. And the argument used to be, as you know, that the wages were less, and so in the public sector, so this is a way of helping them make up for it. But the political winds are blowing in that in the direction of pensions and healthcare. Where do you stand on that?
I think what we have today is what I refer to as an aging of the force. The workers today are approaching retirement age, and there's more attention being paid to what their packages appear to be and how high they appear to be. I think probably this is the time that we take a look at the packaging systems and revise them. I don't think that in years past anybody expected to have somebody cutting grass making $37 an hour, but the guy stayed for 45 years. And there were several salary increases over that period of time. We can't afford that. And I understand that. Yes, it's time for an overhaul. I wouldn't like to see anybody penalized. They should be grandfathered if there is a change. But we have to look at it.
County plan. I assume the county has a plan. I guess they have a plan. Where do you think the county is in this plan, and is this something the commission's on top of? Do you see that as a need?
Are you referring to growth management or?
Yes, primarily growth management.
Oh, there is a 2025 plan that is a roadmap for the real estate planning throughout the county for both business and for building. I think that a lot of good staff work has gone into the plan, and actually I haven't seen the commission move on any large issue without referring to the plan. I think that we stay on track.
Okay, thank you.
Matter of fact, that 2025 plan was adopted in 2010 and approved by the state.
You mentioned like common sense, civility, and stabilization. Those are kind of things you feel like you bring to the board and you want to continue. Do you think the civility is not at the level everyone says it is now? Remember there was the big brouhaha when a former commissioner got up and criticized sitting commissioners, and then
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant had asked for a policy. So I'm just wanting to know where it is, if you feel that's something you need to strongly.
Commissioner Bryan did in fact create a civility policy for the county commissioners. There's also a state policy. There's also a nice plaque hanging in the administrative office that says it will adhere to that civility policy.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I'll have to go look at it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, I think sometimes doing business in public is really hard. We can't speak to each other at any other time. We don't know what each other's emotions are going to be on a given topic, and it's easy to get upset, and it's easy to get upset by members of the audience. And I think somebody needs to be there with a steady approach and bring a little bit of domestic tranquility to the board.
Domestic tranquility. and that would also go along with your comment about stabilization.
Yes,
Bringing stabilization.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Domestic tranquility.
Sergeants are used to having orders.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Listen, I worked with this man. I know.
Yeah. Master Sergeant, who gives a Master Sergeant whip?
Sergeant Major. This
Sergeant
is
Major?
Command Sergeant
No,
Major,
I'll
right?
go with the CSC.
Oh, you weren't.
Staff Sergeant Major.
Staff Sergeant.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So we
Yeah, no one
worked on-
gives a whip.
Yeah. I had one other question, but I don't want
No,
to.
Already?
Okay.
you
All right.
have the floor. Take it.
Well, on the idea that each commissioner has certain things that they want to get done for their resident district, do you see that like pork, or do you think we even have any opportunities to do that anymore because the budget is so tight?
You know what, the budget is so tight. I would like to sit down and build a list for District 3. District 3 would be my responsibility should I be elected. we're not plagued with major problems in District 3. I could tell you that based on service for that district for a full 12 months. I think what's lost in these campaigns, we become consumed with budget, with growth, with all the major issues that we banter back and forth during the campaign, and customer service seems to fall to the wayside. I take pride in the fact that in 12 months I missed 4 days at my desk over a year's time. When the phone rang, I didn't want the secretaries to answer my phone. I answered the phone. And I actioned the solution to the residents' problem. Go downstairs and get in my truck and go out and meet with them right then if I had to. And I think that some of the candidates may lose sight of what's really required to represent the people of your district.
Okay, so do you have any questions?
Okay, on your pamphlet, I just read it, and it talks about eliminating waste and streamlining government. Could you elaborate on that? I mean, what waste do we need to eliminate, and how do we streamline the current government?
We need to do a ground-up review of several areas. When I mentioned our golf course operation a while ago, that was in my mind streamlining an operation and causing a turnaround in the way we did business and taking a hard look. I'd like to be able to, in what free time a commissioner does have, to look at some of our operations. When I came on board, the first thing I did was go to Ms. Lundquist, our secretary, and ask her to develop a calendar for me to meet with every supervisor in the county, every director, and I let Mr. Wanchek know that I'd be out and about. And I met with 17 of them, and I asked for 2 hours. I first wanted a briefing, an operational briefing to find out what they do and how they do it. And then I wanted to meet as many employees as I could to find out how they work and how they felt about the operation. And you'd be surprised you get some suggestions when you get down to that level. That's all part of being a soldier and a supervisor. And I really found that I bonded with the majority of the county directorates, and that's where I think I could take a hard look at some streamlining processes. Listening to employees really works. It's that communication piece again.
Wow. Is there anything we missed that you think we
I don't think so.
I'm trying to think if I wrote down anything else. No, I talked about the growth plan, tax base, jobs, business. Let me piggyback on that last question I asked. Not the last one, but the one on with the reducing lower tax base. How do you keep taxes in the county low with an evaporating tax base and the demand for what you call quality of life, the services that exist, make sure we get free DVDs at the library, have baseball fields that have lights, mow the median, all that kind of stuff.
Well, much to their credit, the county has not stopped cutting the budget. There's been a reduction in the budget of $158 million
each year,
over
right?
this time, and we're still reducing the budget. And if we can continue to do that, then our tax base will be low. That's what we need to do. We need to be the cost cutter. We need to have the moral courage. I had a mentor when I was a junior enlisted guy, and this mentor took me aside and he said, "Ray, I want you to be a success." And it's been my experience, if you develop these two traits, you'll be a success. The first thing I want you to have is a sense of urgency. When you see a problem, solve a problem and move on with the mission. And the second thing, always have the moral courage to do what's right, to face the tough issues and get on with it. And it's going to take some moral courage to continue to cut budgets.
I heard that.
Where did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, hey, good.
I hear it from my boss too.
Yeah.
We all face the same basic
Absolutely,
things.
yes, we do. We sure
Whether
do.
it's in our business life or our government life or our personal life.
Sure.
Anything else that you'd like to say? Anything that we didn't cover? Any clarification? You, like I say,
Well,
in this room, it's a tough thing, but you get the last word.
I gave you a little bit of an overview of my past. I would tell you that all my friends and my family in the last several months have looked me straight in the eye and said, "Ray, are you crazy?" And I've assured them that I'm not. I'm 66 years old. I have no hidden agenda. The only agenda I have is public service. And it warms my heart to get to do that. I like to help people. And I want the opportunity to do that again. There's some deserving folks in this county. And there's some challenges that we need to face. And I think I'm up to that challenge.
Good. Well, we thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you for the opportunity.
glad you spent it with us. And